Welcome to the virtual class of Basic Electrical Engineering. Myself, Professor Gaurang C. Patel from Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Technical Education and Research Center, Navsari. Students, today we are going to learn about the chapter number 5, Electrical Installations. Okay, and today's topics are, so today we are going to discuss in the chapter number 5. First of all, we will start with the safety precautions. That is the safety precautions for electrical apparatus. So in that, what are the safety that we have to taking care of when we are using the electrical equipments, that we will see. Then after finishing of that, we will see the types of batteries, then important characteristics of battery, and finally we will see basics of power factor improvement. Basics of power factor improvement. So today we will going one by one topic. First, safety precautions for electrical apparatus, second, types of batteries and important characteristics of battery, and then basics of power factor improvement. So first we will start with the safety precautions for electrical appliances. So first point over here. So first point is, that is, it is extremely important to take safety precautions when working with electricity, and safety must not be compromised and some ground rules must be followed. So it is really an important parameter when we are going to use electrical equipments, and safety should be our prime concern. Okay, so the basic guidelines regarding safety handling electricities are given below. In first, avoid water at all times. You can see over here the first guidelines for the safety precaution, that is, avoid water at all times when working with electricity. Never touch or try to repair any electrical equipment with wet hands, as it necessary the possibility of shock. Okay, so from first point you can see that always try to avoid the water when we are using electrical equipments. So first of all, make sure that your equipment surface is not to have contain any moisture or any wet, and if it is, then first of all dry off it and then use of any electrical equipments. Okay, because it is increase the possibility of shock. Okay, then second one, never use any equipment with frayed cords, damaged insulation or broken plugs. So students, so many times we can see that in our home there are equipments we are going to use, that is, we use sometimes very roughly, and due to that those cable or that joint, the wire is came out from the insulation, or insulation should be breaking over there. So please taking care of that, because if you by mistake touch that portion of wire that has no good insulation, then there is a possibility of shock. Okay, then third one, never work on any receptacle at your home with main supply on, and always turn it off before working. So please taking care of that. If any equipment, then if it is connected with your main supply, please don't touch it directly before doing any maintenance. just turn off that switch, okay, and then you can go ahead. Then it is says always use insulated tools while working. If it is necessary to work with some electrical equipment, so please try to work with the proper insulating material. Then always use standard pins to tap the supply of power from any plug. So whenever you buy the any electrical equipments, either it is a pin or either it is a plug, please go for the ISI mark for purchasing all those electrical equipments. Then always use the standard ISI mark materials and equipments, even though they, you can see here, they cost a little more. So many times we can compromise with the safety uh, for the cost, but the cost is less important than safety, so keep in mind that, okay. Now if we go further, we can see that avoid electrical hazards by not letting the energized parts and unguarded electric equipment exposed, because they are a shock risk, especially for children in the house. Then never use an aluminum or steel ladder to work on any appliances at height. Instead, use a bamboo, wooden, or fiberglass ladder, because we know that aluminum or steel ladder are a conducting material. It is having a conducting characteristic. So if you're going to work with those kind of ladder, there is a chances of shock are going to be increased. So please try to avoid those kind of ladder and try to use bamboo or wooden or fiberglass ladder. Then know the wire code of your country, because each and every country having a different wire code. Suppose in India you can see there is a wire code, that is R, that is stands, that is red wire is stands for phase wire. Then Y, that is stands for ground, and sorry, that is stands for neutral. And blue wire, that is stands for black wire, that is stands for ground wire, okay. Or you can see R, Y, N, B. So red wire, that is stands for phase, N, that is stands for neutral, and blue, that is stands for ground. So keep in mind this color code, okay. Then you can see always check all your GFCIC, that is ground float circuit interrupters, once a month. These devices are commonly used nowadays to avoid electric shock hazard. Then plug points of high power appliances like refrigerators, weight grinders, washing machine, water heaters, etc. must have a proper earthing, and power should be drawn only through the 3-pin plugs. Then always use a circuit breaker MCB with the appropriate current rating in each electrical circuit. So, and final last one, that is the take care while removing a capacitor from a circuit, or a capacitor stores energy, and if not removed properly, then it may cause an electric shock. So whenever you're trying to remove the capacitor, please taking care of that, because it is having the property of storing energy. And if suppose it is already charged, and if by mistake we touch that two terminals, then you might be in get the shock from that capacitor. So students, please take care of all these points which is regarding to the safety precautions for electrical appliances, okay. After study those safety precautions, we will towards the new topic, that is the battery. And we will start first of all that is basic introduction of battery. So we will start with the basic introduction of battery. The first point, that is, it is known that the electrical current can easily flow through the metallic conductors, and current can also flow through same liquids called electrolytes. Now when current passes through an electrolytic solution, chemical action will occur and produce chemical charges. Thus, in this process, electrical energy is converted into chemical energy, and chemical energy also converted into electrical energy. And the device which is converting chemical energy into electrical energy is called electrical cell. Okay, so here that is the definition of cell is given. So first point we will discuss, that is the smallest element of a battery is a cell, and a cell is defined as a source of EMF, that is nothing but the electromotive force, in which a chemical energy is converted into electrical energy. Okay, so the cell is the device where the chemical energy is converted into electrical energy. And next point, that is a cell consists of two metal plates of different materials, and these plates are immersed in a suitable solution, and the value of EMF produced by a cell depends on the material used for that. Okay, so cell is basically, if we see that it is a two conducting plates which are immersing in electrolytes. Okay, so uh, that what we discussed about the cell, that is the material used for the plates. First, material used for the plates or electrodes and types of electrolyte. So the value of EMF produced by cell depends on these two parameters. Now we will see the some of the important term for the battery. Now we can see a battery is a group of cells depending on the voltage and current requirements. The cells are suitably connected in series parallel configuration, and batteries absorb electrical energy at the time of charging and release it at the time of discharging. Okay, so in second point it says that the batteries give out electrical energy due to chemical reaction taking place. So when battery will give the electrical energy, it will give the electrical energy due to the chemical reaction taking place inside of that cell. Okay, and it is this chemical reaction which is taking place during the discharging of the battery. So at the point of discharging, it will give the electrical energy, and afterwards it says that during the charging process the battery's chemical changes take place which absorb the energy. So during the charging process it absorb the energy, and during the discharging process it will release the energy in terms of electrical energy. Okay, so the entire, whenever you charge or discharge the battery, there is a resistance terms come into the picture. So the entire resistance encountered by a current as if it flows through a battery from the negative terminal to the positive terminal is known as internal resistance of a battery. So if we can say that when current is trying to flow from the positive terminal to the negative terminal, it has to face some resistance, and whatever the resistance it has faced during that journey, that is known as the internal resistance of that battery. Okay, now here you can see the symbol of battery, or you can see the circuit of that. In figure A, this part is known as a battery, which is having positive plate, then negative plates, then positive plate, then negative plate. So generally the bigger line or bigger plates which shows in that figure, it is the positive part, and smaller, that will be the negative part. So two markings are there, that is positive and negative. So figure A will shows a simple connection of battery. Then in figure B you can see there is a one component is connected, that is R. That R is nothing but the internal resistance of your battery, that is the internal resistance which we discussed earlier. So that is the resistance that it has to pass the energy from positive point toward the negative point. So it is the internal resistance R, and Vt, that is nothing but the terminal voltage, and E, that is the EMF of battery. And the last figure you can see over here, that is the current which is flowing through that battery when you are connecting the load R. Okay, so RL, that is the resistive load that is connected to the battery. This current is flowing through it. This R is the internal resistance, and this VT, that is the terminal voltage at the battery. Okay, so here you can see over here, that is total is, that is EMF is equal to Vt plus IR. Vt is your terminal voltage, and I, that is current delivered by battery. This is the current I that is delivered by battery, and R, that is the internal resistance of that battery. Okay, so total EMF is equal to terminal voltage plus IR, that is current into resistance. Okay, so this is the equation to find out the total EMF. Okay, okay, now we will see the classification of cells. So mainly the cells are classified into two categories, one that is the primary cell, and second one that is the secondary cells. So what is the primary cells, we will understand with through this definition. So the primary cells, the chemical action taking place in the primary cells is irreversible. Okay, so once the terminal voltage goes down, we have to replace the primary cell by a new one, and the energy producing capacity of primary cells is limited. For example, dry cells, alkaline cell, mercury cell, zinc chloride cell, etc. So basically, what we can understood, what are the primary cells, that it is no irreversible characteristic, so we cannot recharge that. So once we use this cell, we have to throw it and we have to replace it with the new cells. Okay, and in contrary, we will see the secondary cells. I hope the secondary cell will replace the disadvantages of primary cell. So in secondary cell, it says that the secondary cells are also called as storage cells or rechargeable cells. I told you that in primary cells we so that it is not rechargeable, but in secondary cells it is a rechargeable cells. And the chemical action taking place in secondary cell. Okay, so the secondary cells are reversible, so it is possible to recharge the cell if it is in the discharge state, and the electrical energy is stored in the form of chemical form when the charging current is passed. Okay, so the electrical energy is charged in the chemical form, and the secondary cells are capable of producing large amount of energy. So students, you can also compare the primary cells and secondary cells. If examination they are asked to compare the primary cell and secondary cells, so you can easily make out 4 or 5 points from these uh, definitions for the primary cells and secondary cells. So in secondary cells, it will be producing the large amount of energy. For example, lead acid cell, nickel iron alkaline cell, nickel cadmium alkaline cell, etc. So these are the terms regarding the primary cell and the secondary cell. So here we will see what is the requirement of batteries. So first point for the requirement of battery, for it should be capable of supplying large current at constant output power. So it is the main requirement, it should be supplying large current. Okay, and with the constant output power. Then next, its output voltage should remain constant for all the load currents. Okay, then storage time should be as long as possible, as we need our battery should be stand still for the long time. Okay, then the battery should be compact and occupy less space, so it should not be heavier. So it's having a less weight, so it is easy to carry at each and every place. Okay, then it it should be rechargeable and maintenance free, and it should be cost effective. So these are the requirements of batteries. And for that, today scientists are working very hard for to achieve those desired points for the batteries. Okay, then after we will see the explain AH capacity and WH capacity. So the AH capacity, that is stands for the ampere hour capacity, and WH, that is the watt hour capacity. So an ampere hour, that is the abbreviated AH or sometimes ampere hour. Okay, so it is the amount of energy charge in a battery that will allow 1 ampere of current to flow for 1 hour. So that means 1 ampere of current that is flow for 1 hour, that is known as ampere, that is known as ampere hour capacity. So the an ampere is a unit of measure of the rate of electron flow or current in electrical conductor. Okay, as we know, the ampere, that is the unit of measure of the rate of electron which is flow of from the conductor. And AH capacity, that is the IDTD, that is nothing but ID, that is stands for the rated current during discharging, and TD, that is the discharging time in hour. Okay, so ID, that is the rated current during discharging, and TD, that is the discharging time in hour. Then after we will see that is WH capacity. Okay, the watt hour is a unit of energy equivalent to the 1 watt of power expended for 1 hour of time. And the watt hour is not a standard unit in any formal system, but it is commonly used in electrical applications. Okay, so that WH capacity, that is IDTD VD, where ID, that is we know that rated current during discharging, TD, that is discharging time in hour, and VD, that is the average voltage during discharging. So that is the AH capacity and WH capacity. Okay, now then we will see the classification of battery. So there is the classification of battery. So first of all, that is the non rechargeable batteries. So as we discussed, there is a rechargeable batteries and non rechargeable batteries are there. So in non rechargeable batteries, zinc chloride batteries, zinc carbon, mercuric oxide batteries, and zinc silver oxide batteries, which is under the non rechargeable categories. Then the rechargeable batteries we can see over here, that is the lead acid batteries, lithium ion batteries, nickel cadmium batteries, and after nickel cadmium batteries, it is a nickel hybrid batteries. So these four batteries are in the categories of rechargeable batteries. Okay, so here we will see the lead acid battery with charging and discharging equations. Okay, so just a moment. Okay, so the first point, that the storage battery or secondary battery is such battery where electrical energy can be stored as chemical energy, and this chemical energy is then converted to electrical energy when we require of use of that energy. And the conversion of electrical energy into chemical energy by applying external electrical source is known as a charging of battery. So first of all, from that definition we definitely understood what is the charging of battery. If we go further, whereas conversion of chemical energy into electrical energy for supplying the external load is known as discharging of the secondary battery. And during charging of battery, current is passed through it, which causes some chemical changes inside the battery, and these chemical changes absorb energy during their formation. Okay, so when the battery is connected to the external load, the chemical changes take place in reverse direction, and during which the absorbed energy is released as electrical energy and supplied to the load. Now we will see, it will try to understand working principle of lead acid battery, and for that we will first discuss about lead acid battery, which is very commonly used as a storage battery or secondary battery. Okay, so over here, that is material used for lead acid storage battery cells, that is lead peroxide, spongelate, and the dilute sulfuric acid. Okay, and this is the chemical name, that is the lead peroxide, PbO2, spongeline, Pb, and dilute sulfuric acid, that is the HTSO4. Okay, so first of all, lead peroxide, that is PbO2, the positive plate is made of lead peroxide. This is dark brown, hard and brittle substance. Okay, then sponge lead, the negative plate is made of pure lead in soft sponge condition. And the dilute sulfuric acid, that is H2SO4. That dilute sulfuric acid used for lead acid battery has ratio of water acid is equal, ratio of water, that is the ratio of water acid is equal to 3 chem 1. Okay, or 3 by 3 and 1. So the discharging process, the lead acid storage battery is formed by dipping lead peroxide plate and sponge lead plate in dilute sulfuric acid. So these are immersed in the dilute sulfuric acid, and a load is connected externally between these plates. So suppose if these are the two plates which are immersed into the dilute sulfuric acid, that is H2SO4, then one load is connected with it. So a load is connected externally between these plates in diluted sulfuric acid, and the molecules of the acid split into positive hydrogen ions and the negative sulfate ions. Okay, so the hydrogen ions, when reach at PbO2 plate, then they receive electrons from it and become hydrogen atom, which again attack PbO2. Okay, so if we discuss further, this PbO, that is lead peroxide and water. So this lead peroxide reacts with sulfuric acid, that is nothing but the, just a minute, that is nothing but the dilute sulfuric acid. So this lead peroxide with reacts with the dilute sulfuric acid and forms PbSO4 and H2O, that is the water and the sulfuric acid peroxide. So with chemical reaction of that PbO2 plus 2H, that is lead peroxide, that will be give you this chemical equation, and finally you will get this PbSO4 2H2O. Okay, so that sulfate ions and your lead peroxide will give you this final chemical energy equation. Okay, so that is nothing but the aqueous sulfuric acid. This is the figure you can see. These are the two separators are going to be, oh sorry, these are the two electrodes. Okay, these black dots, that is the separator, it is the lead anode plate, and it is the lead cathode plate. Okay, this is the lead cathode plate. How this lead acid battery is made up of, with such kind of arrangement, there is a two separator in between that, and there is a two plates. One is the cathode plate, that is cathode is signed by the positive terminal, and one is the anode plate, that is signed by the negative terminal. Okay, so now we will see. So these sulfate ions are moving freely in the solutions. So some of them will reach the pure to the pure spongelate plate, that is Pb, that is stands for the spongelate plate, where they give their extra electrons and become radical SO4, and it becomes the radical sulfate ions. You can also say that it becomes the radical sulfate ions. Now as the radical sulfate ions cannot exist alone, it will attack that sponge lid and will form PbSO4, that is the lead peroxide. And as your H plus, that is your hydrogen ion, take electrons from lead peroxide, it will take the electrons from lead peroxide, so your sulfate ions give electrons to the sponge lead plate. So there would be an inequality of electrons between these two plates. Okay, hence there would be a flow of current through the external load between these plates for balancing this inequality of electrons. This process is called discharging of lead acid battery, and the lead acid sulfate is within with is in color. Okay, now we will see the charging process. Now both of the plates are covered with that PbSO4, that is specific gravity of sulfuric acid solution falls due to the formation of water during reaction of the lead peroxide plate. Now as a result the rate of reaction falls, which implies the potential difference between the plates and decrease during discharging processes. Now we will disconnect the load and connect the PbSO4, that is the lead peroxide sulfuric acid covered with the lead peroxide plate with positive terminal of an external DC source, and the lead peroxide covered this plate, that is the sponge lead plate with negative terminal of that DC source. Now during the discharging the density of sulfuric acid falls, but there still sulfuric acid exists in the solution, so the sulfuric acid also remains that hydrogen ion as well as the sulfuric acid. Okay, so these ions are the solution of that hydrogen ions being positively charged and move to the electrode, that is the cathode, connected with the negative terminal of the DC source. Now here, that is hydrogen ion take one electron from that and becomes hydrogen atom, and these hydrogen atoms then attack that PbSO4, that is lead peroxide sulfuric acid, and from lead and sulfuric acid. So this PbSO4 plus 2H will becomes the H2SO4 plus Pb, that is nothing but the dilute sulfuric acid. Now your sulfuric ions move towards the electrode, that is anode, connected with positive terminal of DC source, where they will give up their extra electrons and become the radical SO4. Okay, so these radical sulfuric ions cannot exist alone. Hence it is reacts with the PbSO4 of anode and forms lead peroxide. It will forms the lead peroxide and sulfuric acid H2SO4, that is the sulfuric, it will form the sulfuric acid. Okay, so this is the equation, chemical reaction that will be taking place, and hence by the charging the lead acid storage battery cell, the lead sulfate anode gets converted into lead peroxide, that is nothing but the PbO2, and lead sulfate of cathode is converted to the pure lead, and terminal potential of the cell is definitely it will increases, and specific gravity of sulfuric acid, that is also increases with the chemical reaction. Okay, so similarly we will see over here the nickel cadmium battery with charging and discharging equation and construction of nickel cadmium battery. Okay, so here we will see the nickel cadmium battery with charging and discharging equations. So first of all, the construction of NiCd, that is stands for the nickel cadmium battery. The construction of nickel cadmium cell is shown in below figure. We will see, that is the construction is given over here in that figure. We will see it in detail. before that we will just go through some of the points regarding that. So the positive plate is made up of nickel hydroxide, and the negative plate is spongy cadmium, that is a CD. Okay, so here, that is positive plate that is made for nickel hydroxide, and the negative plate that is made up of CD, that is stands for the spongy cadmium. Okay, so next, if we will see, that is a 21% solution of potassium hydroxide is distilled water is used as a electrolyte. So it is the electrolyte that we are going to use over here, that is a 21% solution of potassium hydroxide. And the construction of lead, that is nickel cadmium battery, is very similar to that to of nickel ion battery. So the positive plates are of nickel hydroxide, and the negative plates are made of mixture of cadmium and iron. So this is the positive plate, which is made up of NiOH, which stands over here. The full form is given over here. That is the positive plates of, that is nickel hydroxide. That is the positive plates of nickel hydroxide, and this is the negative plate for the of the material of spongy cadmium. Okay, so the internal resistance of nickel cadmium batteries is low due to the use of cadmium. Okay, so the internal resistance is low, and the electrical characteristics are almost same as those of the nickel ion batteries. Okay, so the electrical characteristics are quite similar, but the internal resistance is quite small with compared to the nickel ion battery. Okay, so the we will see over here, that is the action taking place during discharging. So at anode over here, so at the anode, that is nickel hydroxide plus this 2K will gives you this chemical reaction. Okay, so that is nothing but the nickel hydroxide plus potassium hydroxide. Okay, so at the anode side you will see that it will give you the chemical reaction for the nickel hydroxide plus the potassium hydroxide. Now at the cathode you can see this, the different reaction we can see over here. So at the cathode side there is a different chemical reaction, and at the anode side there is a chemical reaction with the nickel hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. So this is the resultant action that will be given, as it is at for the positive plate, and this is for the negative plate. Okay, and the combination of that, or you can say the result of that, that is nothing but the nickel hydroxide plus potassium hydroxide plus your nickel, your spongy cadmium with your oxide or hydrogen oxide. Okay, so the electrolyte, that is potassium hydroxide, splits into the positive K ions and negative OH ions during discharging ions from negative plate, force free electrons to positive plates. Now when the cell is discharged, now when the cell is discharged, the positive element becomes nickelous hydroxide, while the negative element becomes the cadmium hydroxide. Okay, so the positive element, that is becomes the nucleus hydroxide, that is nothing but this one, that is the nucleus hydroxide, while the negative plates, that becomes the cadmium hydroxide. This is the cadmium hydroxide, and that this positive plate is become the nucleus hydroxide. Okay, now we will see the action during the charging. During charging of the cell, positive element becomes nickel hydroxide and negative element becomes the metallic cadmium. Now when cell is fully charged, it generates oxygen gas at positive element and hydrogen gas at the negative element. So we can see over here the charging equation is collectively given as for the, this is for the positive element, this is for the negative element, similarly this is for the positive element and this is for the negative elements. Okay, now we will see the applications of that nickel cadmium batteries. So such are applications are, it is used in helicopters, aeroplanes, or as an auxiliary turbines, for the traction applications, for the lighting, air conditioning, etc. in trains, or in the automobiles, or in the movie cameras, electric shavers, food flash, etc. So nickel cadmium batteries are using widely. Now we will see the charging and its method of the battery. Okay, now we will see over here, that is the charging and its methods of battery. To charge a lead acid battery, the following important points should be kept in mind. The first one, that is a DC source should be used for charging. If AC source is available, it should be first rectified. Okay, then the DC source should be connected with proper polarities to the battery to be charged. So the polarities, that means positive terminal which is connected with the positive and negative terminal which is connected with the negative wire. Okay, then the DC source voltage should be higher than the maximum terminal voltage of the battery. Typically the charging voltage should be 2.5 voltage per cell, and the value of charging current should be set properly. Okay, now the charging current should not be too high in order to avoid excessive gassing and heat during the charging process. So this should be taking care of that, that charging current should not be very high, because it produces the gases as well as it will increases the heat. Okay, now the charging current can be set by taking one of the following two rules. First rule, that is the charging current should be equal to number of positive plates in a single cell, and second one, the charging current should be such that the full charging be achieved in 8 hours. So these two rules should be taking care of that. First, that is the charging current should be equal to number of positive plates, and the second, that is the charging current should be such that the full charging be achieved in 8 hours. Now if we have the charging of battery with AC supply, so first of all we have to rectify that. For that we can use, you can see this is the AC signal, and this AC signal we are trying to convert the DC signal, and for that such kind of equipment, that is transformer, rectifier, filter, regulator, and then battery is connected there. So transformer will, uh, what transformer is doing, what is rectifier, what is filter, and what is the function of regulator and battery, that I will show you. So these are the in and out function. You can see here battery is there, then after the regulator is there, then after filter is there, and then after the rectifier is there. So the regulator will regulate the voltage of the battery, then filter will filter all the harmonics and all the unnecessary components from that power, then rectifier will be rectified it, and con- transformer will give you the value of voltage that what you desired. Okay, so over here this AC voltage will be converted into the DC voltage. Okay, and after the filtering process your DC voltage is looking like this smooth DC voltage. This is known as the pulsating DC, and after the use of this filter we will able to get the smooth DC. You can go from here to here as well as from here to that side. So you can go from AC to DC, as well as you can go for the DC to AC. Okay, so at both the side this circuit is going to be work. If you going from the AC side to the DC side, first transformer will be taking place. This transformer will feed to the rectifier, and rectifier will convert your AC supply into that pulsating DC supply. This is the pulsating DC supply. Then this pulsating DC supply given to the filter, and this filter will give you this smooth DC supply. This smooth DC supply will be regulated by this regulator, and as per the desired voltage we can charge our battery. Okay, so that's how it's going to be worked. Okay, now if the source of energy is alternating, then the DC voltage required for the charging of a battery is derived from the AC source by using a rectifier. That what we have understood and seen in the figure. Then the step down transformer reduces the high AC supply voltage to a low AC voltage, and the rectifier converts this AC voltage into the DC voltage. Okay, so the step down transformer reduces the high AC supply voltage to a low AC voltage, and the rectifier converts this AC voltage into the DC voltages, and the filter is used to get pure DC voltage. As we see, this is the pulsating DC we get, and with the filter you can get the pure DC voltage, that is the straight line. Okay, so it is given, and then it is given to the regulator, and regulator is a device which gives regulated voltage at the input of battery. Okay, and there are some of the charging methods. There is first, that is the constant charging method, and second, that is the constant voltage charging method. The first, constant current charging method, it says that the completely discharged battery is first charged at a constant charging rate. Okay, now this will cause the terminal voltage of the battery to increase considerably, and the charging current is kept constant by varying the supply voltage for overcoming the increased cell voltage, and the value of charging current is adjusted carefully to avoid excessive gas. Now the second, that is the constant voltage charging method. Now when cell voltage reaches sufficiently high value, that means it will reaches the sufficiently high value, the constant current charging, that is this constant current charging is stopped. At that stage constant current charging is stopped, and constant voltage charging is adopted. Then the constant voltage charging is adopted, and the charging current then decreases. After that, once the constant voltage charging adopted, the charging current is going to be decreased. Okay, and this mode of charging is known as the float or trickle charging. This question is repeatedly asked in a Viva examination, what is the trickle charging. So you can easily explain that when cell voltage reaches sufficiently high value, then the constant current charging is stopped and constant voltage charging is adopted, and the charging current then decreases. Okay, and this mode of charging is known as the float or trickle charging. Typically the voltage at which changeover from constant current to constant voltage take places at 2.15 volts. Okay, and this is the charging modes of battery. You can see over here. So this is the charging modes of battery is given over here. So this is the charging voltage. You can see up till that when it is meet with the constant current. Once it is charged with constant current and getting the value of that fully constant voltage, that at that time constant current mode is dropped and constant voltage mode is going to be started. So over here you can see constant current mode is dropped over here, and constant voltage mode is starting with that, and this is known as the taper current as well, and this is your charging current. Okay, so these are the charging modes of battery. First mode, that is the constant current mode. Up till that it will be a charge. Then a constant voltage mode is there, that means the battery is charged with the full value of voltage. Then constant voltage will be there, and this point is known as a trickle point as well, or trickle charging as well. Now these are some of the important parameters regarding the trickle charging. The trickle charging is necessary to keep the battery fully charged always, and it is used to compensating the charge loss due to the internal discharge of the battery, and the trickle charging current is very low. So keep in mind this point of the trickle charging. The next one, that is the when battery is kept as an emergency service, it is necessary to ensure that it is fully charged all the time and ready for the service anytime. And the third one, the charged battery always loses some of its charge due to internal leakage and other open circuit losses. So to compensate for such loss of charge, the battery is kept on trickle charging. So always battery is on the mode of trickle charging to avoid these situations. Okay. And the fourth one, that is the boost charging. When the battery is being charged for the first time or when it is being used after a long time, the boost charging mode is used. Okay, so we can see over here, when the battery is being charged for the first time or when it is being used after a long time, the boost charging mode is used, where the cell voltage is raised above 2.4 volt up to 2.6 volt. So in boost charging, cell voltage is raised to 2.4 volt to 2.6 volt, and the boost charging is used for breaking down the crystalline PbSO4, formed which is formed when the battery is not in use for a long time. Okay, so these all are the points regarding the related to the battery and charging of that battery. Different types of charging, different types of batteries are there. Okay, so I hope you can understood all those points through this video. Now we will discuss what are the questions asked in GTU examination regarding these points. So in GTU examinations, such kind of questions can be asked from these topics, that is types of batteries and charging and discharging of batteries, then give safety precautions and safety precautions rules for electrical apparatus. So I hope you may be able to give the answer of this kind of questions. Okay. So finally, I would like to say you once again that please turn off. Remember to turn off the light when it's not in use. So save electrical energy. Thank you.